Hi everyone. Today I decided to do some coasters on my 3018 Pro from Eurohome. I decided I wanted to get a couple more done for Christmas. So it's probably going to be part one of two because it's just too much to do. It's a long video to do this and then the carving. So let's get started. I'm going to actually start from scratch and walk you through my actual steps of everything I do, every step I take, and what I take in consideration, bringing in some SVGs and so forth. So I hope this video helps you out. So the first thing is I have some wood that I got. It's oak. It's long. It is 3.5 inches wide by only like a 1/4 inch thick, and I got a real long piece. So as you know, the 3018 does a 7x12. So I'm just going to do 2 coasters at a time. So let's get started here. What I got is I got this SVG bundle of Christmas goodies, and whenever I'm doing when I also have the 6550 laser from Eurohome, and it's amazing just as well. But when you are working with the 3018, you know, depending on the bit that you have, you can only do so much detail. Like this would be more for the laser. So I want to do, I think, a reindeer, a set of bells, a tree, and maybe a star. So if we start with a reindeer, I like this reindeer right here, and I think that's the one I'm going to choose. So what I would do is I pull up my reindeer bundle here, and basically it's reindeer number 4. So I want to bring in the SVG file, so I'm going to go up with import SVG, and it is going to be the reindeer, did I say number 4? And so there's the reindeer, and so I'm just going to shrink it down a little bit to get it out of the way. Actually, it's not grouped together, as you can see, so I'm going to go ahead and combine that before I do anything. So if you go up to edit and then you go combine, basically it groups it together. This way you don't get the separate pieces. The other one is going to be the set of bells, and again I have chosen this set here. Whoops, sorry, my machine's dragging here. Let's see, Christmas ornaments, that is not it. Where'd it go? Oh, duh. So I like this one. This is the one I like. I think I'm going to do this one because I want to do a little bit of painting, some different things. So that is Christmas bells number 5. So we are going to drag that out of the way. File, import. Christmas bells number 5. And as you can see, also that is not grouped together. So before I do anything and unselect it, I'm going to go up to edit and combine, because if not, when you go to move it, you're only going to move parts of it. So let's just shrink this down a little bit. That's the nice thing about the SVGs, is you can make them wherever you want. And let's go ahead and do the outer frame. So don't worry about the depth and cuts and the bits and everything just yet. I basically want to get my design down and then figure out how I want to cut it afterwards. So let's go ahead and make a square, and the size of this square, if you go up to shape, and the size of the square is going to be 3.5 by 3.5, and then I'm going to lock it. The other thing is you can see it here, I'm actually going to cut this out. So if I do cut, and I'm going to cut on the outside of the shape. So as you can see over here, actually, let's pull this all the way down. I'm actually going to cut it out. But before I do, and I get into these tabs, I don't really like it square. I like my coasters with a little bit of corners on it, or yeah, like a curve. So I'm going to change my corner radius to 0.25. And as you can see now, if you look in here, it puts a nice little corner on it, which is pretty cool. So couple things. I'm going to cut this out of I'm actually going to have one long piece here, and I'm going to cut it out, and I'm going to leave a tab up top and a tab down the bottom. So whenever you drag this down to cut the depth, the whole depth, it automatically enables your tabs, and then you choose how many tabs you want, the 4 tabs, and the tab basically is a little piece of wood that's left over that just holds this piece to the frame. This way it doesn't go flying when you cut it all the way through. So in this case, it's small, it's only 1/4 inch, so I really only need 2, and I'm going to put them at the top and the bottom. So it automatically puts them on the corner, and you do not want them on the corner, believe me. Could you see trying to get a saw in here and trying to get that little piece of wood off? It's not fun. So let's move this over here, and then let's move this over here. So I guess we should go ahead and set the size of our wood, which we probably should have did first, but I like working like this here. So I have a 10 inch, I'm going to do 10 inch by 3.5, and it is 0.25 thickness. Yes, I know. So, yeah, let me come back here, 0.5, not sure why I did that, but one thing is I want to tell you is I do all mine in inches. You're more than welcome to change it to the millimeter, and there's my settings, 254 by 89. It's a beautiful thing about this, you can just switch it on the fly to inches and millimeter, which makes it very handy for whoever is going to do the whatever you use. So with that being said, this one coaster here, before I copy it, I'm sorry, I moved the size, didn't I? I want to make it 3.5 inches. And then the Y, I'm going to change to 0.0, and that's going to put the center of this in the center of my board. And so I'm going to click the home button, and I'm going to come here for a second. I want to make sure that I'm going to be cutting on the outside of that, so I want to make sure that's on the inside. And you know what else I just noticed? I can't put the tabs at the top and bottom. I have to put them on the left and right because this will be off of the wood. So what you do is you just click your tab, you drag it over, and you click this tab, and you drag it over. See, I'm glad that you guys are doing this with me. So I'm going to click it, and I'm going to move it over. It moves slow. If you hold the shift key and push tab, it actually moves over faster. So I'm just going to move it over to that first mark, and that gives me 1 inch to put a clamp here, which is pretty good. And then now that I have it selected, I'm going to go edit, copy, and then edit, and paste. And let's move this one over as well. I want to move this a little bit further away, this way that I have a little piece of wood in the middle here that these two can hold on to. I'm just kind of worried. I might want to give it, it's not going to go anywhere with this clamp. I almost feel like, yeah, that's okay. So now I need to bring down the deer and slide it down to the first coaster. So I was showing you here, if you click this here, whoops, sorry, and you change your thickness to 0.25, and it gives you this message, that's basically because if you come back to your designs that you have here, they're deeper than a 1/4 inch. We need to just make them not as deep as a 1/4 inch, pretty much. And then you can come back and change it, and it should change it just fine, as you can see now. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. So basically what I'm going to do here is when you select, well, let's do this. The diameter, inside diameter, since I'm cutting on it as 3.5 by 3.5, if I click on the deer, the largest point of the deer is 3.5. Make sure it's locked. You definitely want to keep the orientation, because if not, if you go to try and change it and it does this to your deer, then you don't have it locked. So let's undo that. Let's make sure it's locked. And I'm going to make the deer, you definitely don't want to be all the way up to it, the antlers. So I'm going to say like 3.25. Whoop, 3.25. So what we're going to do is click the deer, and we're going to move it down pretty close. Then hold the shift key down and select the outer frame. You can do it center horizontal, center vertical. So it puts it pretty well in the center, right where we want it. Let's do the same thing with the bells. I actually want to make this one a little bigger. Move it over a little bit using my keyboard. That looks pretty good actually. I like that. I like that. I'm just making an even number here. And then I'm going to hold the shift key, click the outer frame, center horizontal, center vertical, and that looks pretty good. One thing, let's do two more. So what I would do here is we're going to use 2 bits. We're going to use I'm going to use a 1/32 bit, and then I'm going to use the 0.1 millimeter V bit that you get from the Your Home site if you don't already have them. But before I do that, what I want to show you what I would do is a couple different things. I'm going to break this up. We now know the size of it. We now know the location of it. We could actually move this over if we needed to, but so what I would do is click down here, and we're going to open up, which I call quote unquote another layer, actually 2 of them. So we're going to come back to the first one, and we're going to highlight everything, go to edit, copy, and then click the second one and go edit, paste. And the reason why I like doing it just like this is because it actually puts back everything exactly how it's supposed to be. Saves everything that we've done and everything how it's supposed to be, and which is really good. So basically all you got to do now is delete the deer and delete the bell and move in 2 more items. And let's do that real quick. Let's grab a Christmas tree here. Christmas trees, and the one that I selected is this one here, the Christmas tree 1. I think that's what I'm going to get. I don't know, I just kind of like that. Reminds me of the Grinch tree. So Christmas tree 1. So that is File, Import, Christmas trees 1. Now that it's here, don't forget to make sure that the shape is locked, because we do not want to lose its orientation. And let's shrink it down a little bit. Maybe right there is probably pretty good. Hold the shift key and select the outer, center horizontal, center vertical, and there's our tree. And let's throw in a star, and I'm gonna do where the heck is it? It's not here. It'll be the last place I look. Because it's not a star, it's a snowflake. And I think the one I liked was this one here. So snowflake number 4, I believe that's it, yeah, number 4. So that's File, Import SVG. Let's go to snowflakes. I called it a star, number 4. Same thing, make sure you lock its orientation. Let's shrink it down a little bit, move it over. Definitely got to make it bigger now. What was the other one? 3.0, I think. And hold the shift key. Whoop, missed it. Outer area, center horizontal, center vertical, and that actually looks pretty good. I think I'm gonna paint the balls a different color than the others, but anyway. So there's our 2 sets of coasters. I call quote unquote layers, but we're going to cut them at 2 different times out. So let's go ahead and work with our bits a little bit. As you can see here, the bit we have 1/8 bit is going to be pretty big. Obviously it's not going to cut it out pretty detailed. So I'm going to choose my 1/32 bit, and it actually goes pretty good. Not quite as much detail, but it's pretty darn good. See, it didn't quite get in here. So we're going to add another bit. We are going to add, we're going to do, I'm just going to put custom. And this one is the 0.1 millimeter bits. It is smaller. Oh, you know what? 0.1 millimeter. Okay, so now as you can see, we're getting in here to the detail. Now we can get a lot more detail. So now what we're going to do is we're going to change these to manual. You definitely don't want to do 30 inches a minute. You can try it. I don't like to be that aggressive, especially with this wood. It's kind of a little bit, it's pretty hard, pretty tough wood. So I'm going to change this to 8. You could be a little more aggressive if you choose. You can try it depending on what you're cutting it on. You can probably bump it up to 12 if you want, but that's entirely up to you. The depth per pass 0.28 is actually usually pretty good. But I think I'm going to change mine to 0.2 with just these because I want it to be really nice, really smooth, take its time. I'm going anywhere. So same thing here, 8 depth per pass here. I'm going to just keep the same thing, 2. Well, it will take forever, but you definitely don't want to go too hard because then your bits are going to just jam in there and you know, bust them up or cut them or whatever. Especially the little bit going in here, the little itty bitty small 0.1 millimeter bit. You definitely don't want to just jam it into the wood because you're just going to break it, or you're going to wind up breaking your little areas here that are pretty. So you just want it to take its time and cut it for something like this. So that's basically what I got, 1/32, 0.1. Had I did all that before I made this new page, all that would have been saved. So that's something to think about also. This one's going to be 1/32. It is going to be smaller. The detail is going to be millimeter, 0.01. I'm sorry. Yeah, 0.1, sorry. And that's going to give us some pretty good detail in there. So the other thing is, let me change these cut settings before we go forward, is how deep do we want to cut these? What I have 8. And again, if you do all these on the first page before you actually make a second page, it'll actually save them. So let's go back to here for a second. One thing we didn't do was the depth. How deep should we cut these? I'm thinking 1/16, 0.6325. That looks pretty good, don't you think? Almost go a little bit less, but that's pretty good. Pretty good detail there. Again, if you hold your shift key and you move your mouse, you can actually drag this and look. Same thing for the bell. Let's change it to 116.6325. And that's going to give us a pretty good cut. I like that, actually. It's going to be good. So let's change this one over here. I know some of these I did backwards. Let's see. 0.625 and sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing. And I just moved it. I don't know if you saw that. You got to be careful. I moved it by accident, so that's another thing to watch out for. When you're clicking and clicking, 0.625. So that's pretty good depth, and you know, and at 0.2 or 0.02. I'm sorry, cut settings is 0.02 isn't bad. You could actually go maybe a little more, but anyway, so that's those two there. And I want to show you one more thing now. So my 1/32 bit, I would not normally use it to cut out the coasters or anything like that. You probably could. Mine is not that long. I think my actual cutting length is probably a 1/4 inch, if that, probably about a 1/4 inch. So I don't want to jam it into the wood, and it starts to flare out to the 1/8 inch width of the bit, so you don't want to do, which I'll show you when we get out there. So if you're faced with this is how I will overcome this. Even though we did our cutout earlier, now you can see it's so much thinner now because the bit I have is 1/32, not 1/8 inch bit. So now we have a different problem. So since these, you can actually confirm this, and I'll show you here. So this square, its position is 1.117 by 0 center. So if you come back to here, these should be exactly the same, because remember I copied and pasted them, and so it puts them exactly where they're going to be. So we only technically really need to make one template for what I'm getting ready to show you. So let's come here to the first one, and let's just highlight everything, and we're going to hold the shift key and we're going to unselect, we're going to select the bell, which will actually unselect it, and then we're going to unselect the deer. And then I'm going to edit, copy, and then I'm going to come over to my blank template down here, and then I'm going to go edit, paste. It puts them exactly the exact same position, and if you'll notice now, it does have the 1/8 bit, and all we need to do is now go back and do the tabs if we need to, make sure they're on the sides. There is 2 tabs. Actually, they're still all there, so yeah, everything's still there, sorry. I actually don't like how these tabs are right next to each other, just a personal preference. I prefer to stagger them. You know, this might look time-consuming and cumbersome what I'm doing, but believe me, if you do this long enough, you'll know that taking the amount of time on this design with all your settings is so important, because you want to go out there and cut once. It's what do they say? Measure twice, cut once. It's kind of what I'm doing here. So basically, now that I've done that, if you want to, you could actually delete these frames, because you don't want your 1/32 bit to cut these. So technically, we could delete these now. And since these frames are exactly the same thing, you only need to really technically cut this one out. When it's done cutting, you're going to come over here, and then we're going to use this to cut out the 2 things, and then we're going to change our board. We're going to put on another board. We're going to cut these 2 out, and then we're going to cut this one out. So it's pretty easy. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete these, because I don't want them on here now. I just want the tree and the snowflake, which I call star, to be cut out. So let's come up here, click Untitled. Let's change it to Christmas Coasters. And let's go. I didn't check my cut settings here. So on the 1/8, we want to do it manual. On this one, I'm probably going to just still do the same thing, 8. And I actually think I'm going to leave the depth per pass 0.28. The feed rate, you could always adjust the feed rate 2 times of what you have. So the reason why I like to start it low is because you don't want your machine just to go and start jamming into here right off the bat. It's going to be much easier you just slowing it down than it would be, or much easier to speed it up than it would be to try and slow it down real quick. So that is pretty much it. Hope that helped everybody out. And part 2, I'm going to be out there cutting it here shortly, and we'll see how it goes.
Jungle.